NEF Talk is our signature discussion program, and we have hosted nearly 50 of these in the past 10 years. NEF Talk is an initiative of the Nepal Economic Forum that focuses on facilitating meaningful interactions in different thematic areas and contributing significantly in the private sector development discourse. In today's edition, the discussions would be on preparing young people with 21st century skills for the 21st century economy. We would like to thank UNICEF for making this edition of NEF Talk possible. NEF Talk continues to bring together events and publication in partnership. So when we talk about the NEF Talk today, I think the contextualization we'll have is that Nepal has a population of 50% under 25 and more than 7 million children, or 25% of its population in schools. The world of employment and income generation is changing at an unprecedented rapid pace, and one of those times in history where it seems we are at a dilemma of what to do to prepare the youth for the future. In today's NEF Talk, we have the honor of hosting Ms. Henrietta Fore, Executive Director of UNICEF, to do the contextualization of the discourse, and will be followed by a panel discussion that I'll moderate. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Ms. Fore to make her presentation.
Good afternoon from all of us at UNICEF. We are in 190 countries around the world, and we are delighted that you are taking a subject of preparing young people for with 21st century skills for a 21st century economy. We've just been talking about making Nepal cool, and NEF Talk is one of those acronyms that is very cool. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for being here today. So UNICEF believes that supporting children is everybody's business. There is simply no better investment in our future than an investment in today's children and young people. As young people build their own futures, they are building Nepal's future. They are filling and creating jobs, they're building new businesses, and they're strengthening the country's economy. It's up to all of us to work together to ensure that they get the support that they need, and the education that they need, and the training and skills that they need to fulfill this mission. Across Nepal, young people are calling out for support. As you just heard, nearly 70% of the country's unemployed workers are young people. They face a combination of challenges: poverty, inequality, and exclusion. But young people are telling us what they need, and they're saying to us that they need an education. They need 21st century skills for a 21st century economy. They need entrepreneurship guidance so they can start their own businesses and make their own jobs. So how can we work together to support this young generation? Here in Nepal, UNICEF is supporting a program called Rupantaran. I may not have said that right, so forgive me. A social and financial skills training package that we're delivering throughout the schools. But there's much more that we can and that we must do together so that we can support this. So UNICEF has launched a new program that you will see here on the screen, and it's called Generation Unlimited. The goal is ambitious, but we think it is achievable, and it is to get every young person in school, learning, training, or age-appropriate employment by the year 2030. To make this happen, we need education ministries to work closely with businesses and trade associations to find ways to build tomorrow's workforce. So imagine the innovation and the growth that can happen by giving young people the training and the seed funding that they need to start a business in their communities, because they'll need to make their own jobs. Nepal's greatest asset is its young people, and it's an incredible demographic advantage. So let us work together to develop that advantage and create new avenues of support for young people. So in conclusion, let me just add that supporting their futures while supporting Nepal's future is a very important undertaking, and UNICEF looks forward to working with all of the members of your forum in how we can achieve this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fore, for your wonderful remarks. I think we'll keep on discussing at the panel discussions on what is the implications of what you said to Nepal, but I think I just noted some points to say that job creation is not only the responsibility of the government, but it's the responsibility of all of us, private sector, and definitely there would be a lot of role for the development partners as we go ahead. With that, may I request the panelists for the discussions to join on stage. Ambassador Elisabeth von Capeller, Excellency Ambassador of Switzerland to Nepal. Sumana Shrestha, Head of Global Operations and Strategies, FuseMachines, and Umesh Chandra Rai, CEO of Yeti Airlines. May I start with Ambassador Capeller at the extreme right, in terms of, as the first round, to talk about, introducing some of the work that the Swiss Embassy is already doing, and talking about some of the, TVET work, and maybe just a reflection, about a few minutes reflection on the presentation made by Ms. Fore, and what does this really mean to Nepal?
Okay. Thank you very much for giving me the space. I would like to start to share with you that we believe it is a success story, the TVET sector in Nepal. Worldwide, probably one of the countries beside Austria, Germany, and Switzerland who really wants to go for a TVET sector, and this has to do with different factors. One is that the Prime Minister Oli has clearly said 70% of the young Nepali should go for skill, and I come to that. So I think it has really boosted the understanding that it is important. Other success factor is that there is the private sector in Nepal who is really eager to be involved. We have not seen this in other countries. We have not seen this in the US. We have not seen this elsewhere. It is really a success factor. The private sector is very much interested, and the private sector is very much interested because they need the right people at the right place, and they don't have it. What we think is TVET is different from skill. TVET is technical and vocational education and training is a formal path. Is formal, which helps the young people entering the job market. Skills is more informal, helps the people to get some job, but doesn't help them to have a career. So it's very important to make the distinction. What is important, and I see also here people from the school sector, is that the students have to be prepared. They have to have a counseling before they enter, because we usually say 10th grade, and then they enter in the TVET sector. So it's important about counseling. It has to start earlier. We are very much surprised about the interest in the dual VET system. That means the students are 5 days in the enterprise and 1 day or 2 days in the school. And this gives them the really skills, because if they're only in school, they don't learn, because it's about life skill. We have seen a huge interest, and that's our success, another success factor here. What is needed is that there is a need of the federalization of the TVET sector. We have published a whole booklet on how to federalize it. We are advising the minister on the federalization. We have advised the minister also to go for a separate TVET Act. Then maybe one thing I would like to say is it's about status. Young people need to feel proud when they do it. And this has a lot to do also with the society. It has also to do to escape the social pressure. Yes. And young people move away because they feel the social pressure, because they have not enough space in the society. And I think we can discuss long about establishing it if the society is not changing that. And with that, I would like to close.
So I move on to Sumana, maybe talk a bit about how does the work you do connect with the larger presentation and an immediate reaction to what has been talked about initially at the presentation. So we can start with that, and I'll come back to you with more specifics.
It is amazing to see people from different sectors coming together to try to tackle one of the areas that has been bothering me. So World Economic Forum report states by 2022, the top skills or job titles are going to be data analysis, data scientist, AI engineers. The skills you would need would be critical thinking, being able to people manage, negotiation, those are kind of skills. The second is a labor migration report, 2017, that says a lot of jobs that our Nepali brothers and sisters go and do in Malaysia, like driving, carpenter, are actually at a big risk of being automated by driverless cars, by robots, and whatnot. These two things worry me a lot because we are at a position we are because of the remittance money that comes in. So there is a big risk to employment, and not just to employment, to the country in general. That is the scary part. The part that gives me a lot of hope is a PwC report says $15.7 trillion is going to be created by 2030 due to AI. The thing that is really changing globally is previously the pace at which innovation happened was 50 years, 100 years. Why do our technology get obsolete so fast? Because innovation is happening at that pace. And that is the world Nepal needs to be prepared for. FuseMachines its core mission is democratize AI, which means there are three ways in which we've internalized this mission. First is an awareness of this is the potential of artificial intelligence. Second is enabling companies to adopt AI. What does it mean? It needs to have a managerial mindset, a vision that can project into a future and envision a company and in an industry that can really be disruptive and grow. And the third thing that really, the way we've internalized, democratize AI, our mission statement, has been we need to create talent. There is so much scope for Nepal to adopt AI in every which aspect you can think of. There are a lot of implications. I cannot think of a single area, single industry that is not going to be impacted by artificial intelligence. But let me emphasize that word, artificial. What humans have is the creativity. So that is where we really need to, A, not move away from it, not think of it as an enemy, but really accept it, that this is going to be the future in 10 years' time, 20 years' time. We need to start focusing on things that machines probably are not good at. That's what we are trying to do in terms of really building a workforce that is ready for the AI revolution that I see coming. And the more we see it, accept it, the faster we'll be able to adapt.
Thanks, Sumana. Yeah, I think we literally got into flying into this world of innovation, and which means that we have to get back to also real flying. And we have Umesh Rai from Yeti Airlines, and to talk about his perspective on how, sort of a company like yours is looking at skills, is looking at, also the changing world of the business you are in.
I did Google yesterday about, the future skills that young people need in the 21st century. And I think it said something like, I think we're trying to prepare our students for jobs, technologies that don't exist yet, and for problems, we don't know our problems yet. So it's kind of bewildering. And in many ways, I feel a little not so envious for the younger generation, because the pace at which change is happening, disruptive technology, I'm sure it is very difficult to catch up and be certain about what you want to do in the future, because when you talk about airlines, they talk about pilotless aircraft as well. So, maybe you can't be a pilot. I don't know. In my work, I do come across a lot of young people, young managers. And maybe I can talk a little bit more about non-technical skills, but more about other aspects which are equally important in your future. There's a Japanese concept called ikigai. So I thought it was a wonderful concept for young people to think about. I think it translates into the reason for being. I think it goes like, what do you like doing, or what do you love doing? So second question would be, are you good at it? You have to be good at it too. Thirdly, does the society, does the world need it? Fourth, will you get paid for it? Can you make a living from it? And if all of these intersect, then they say go for it. So, not knowing what's going to be the skill that is required in the future, so I can't tell you study this or study that, but maybe, whatever skills you've developed or have been born with, perhaps you should look at it in that way.
Maybe I'll go back to Elisabeth, in terms of talking about if some of the things that we could do on the TVET sector, what are some of the things that we can touch upon or work upon as we move ahead that could be part of this larger movement of Generation Unlimited?
Again, thank you. I think what I said before, it's really the link with the private sector. It's so important, and it's a link to the future of the economic development of this country. And this will not be industrialization. This country will probably more be in service delivery. So it's about to think about in which kind of, similar to what my colleagues have said, maybe on a different level. It is more on supporting developing really a good TVET system in insurance, in banking, in healthcare, in trades where this country will have a future. I think the private sector need to be more aggressively tell the government what they need. It's not that they have to wait until the government delivers. They have to ask for it. They have to ask for the right profile. They have to ask for the right training institution. And what is really also important is what I said, that the young people should be 4 years or 4 days or 5 days in the enterprise, and then only short time in school. This is very important on different level of education, and especially in TVET sector. We have seen in other countries the counseling of the young people on what they want and where their energy lies and where the opportunities is very much important. I think important is for us also to have a common approach, all the development partners, and also to help now Nepal federalize the system. It's very much important also for us to understand that the province should understand that it is about competition. It's about creating, enabling a business environment for each in each province. We also have to help the provinces to understand what their role is in enabling a business environment in the provinces, in order that we can then link education and the market. Thank you.
So maybe I'll just move on to Sumana. So, we started this discourse earlier on the innovation. Can Nepal, ride on that and, make the transformation or unleash, as I say, is that possible? So how do you see it? The gaps are there, but what the potential you see it?
Nepal has this, how do I say it, curse of cheap labor. It's cheaper for a lot of institutions to pay somebody 15,000, 20,000 to scan all the documents, type it all up, rather than buy OCR product, optical character recognition, that from a picture, it will give you editable data that you can then generate business intelligence on. That's the first one. The second really is, I feel from an AI perspective, there's just a lack of awareness and understanding. The problem of not having enough machine learning engineer is not just of Nepal, by the way. It's in America too. We've been trying to hire ML engineer in US too. There are just not enough people with that kind of skill set. So in the sector that we're working in particularly, globally, there is a big gap. What that means is it's a good opportunity for countries like Nepal to really jump in, learn, educate, and monetize on it, and be ahead. So just like Your Excellency, you mentioned, Nepal, I feel, is going to be developed by service sector. We don't have to go through the route that we learn in our Economics 101 class. First is agriculture, then it becomes a manufacturing, then it goes to service. I think we can go directly to service. And I think tech sector is going to be the sector that's going to bring about the change. The reason AI, it's taken off many different times, but now we are really at a potential because we have very powerful machines at this point. When the innovation does happen, and it will happen, it's just if, matter of time, not if, we need to be prepared. So I don't think we've missed out on anything. We just need to be willing to learn about it, embrace it, and know whether we like it or not. Nepal, despite being landlocked, is going to have to adapt. Something is going to come. We just need to be prepared for it. But I don't think we've really missed the boat.
Okay, that's good to learn. So I think I'll just now put Umesh on the spot, because I think we talk about the opportunities that are there, and of sort of Nepal riding this wave of change that's happening. So we are at the inflection point. So do you think that the private sector, from your experience in terms of interacting with other members of the business community, do you think there is that sense that we need to change and we need to embrace this, and they understand the situation that's happening and the skills gap that exists, and sort of that readiness to say that, okay, let's get together and do something, maybe? Yeah.
I think the private sector is always ready, because we're always about making money, and so you do what you can to make money. So I really don't think the issue is like just on the private sector. There are, macro issues that do sort of restrict us a bit. I think the private sector is ready. It's just that what we've been through in the last 25, 30 years as a country. So we're just finding our feet again. If the overall environment is sort of more or less created and the youth take advantage of it, I think we should be okay. You talked about, I think, 50% of our population being under 25 and 70% being unemployed. But we look at it as a problem, but it's also an opportunity. So opportunities do exist, but we have to break that mindset that we have about just wanting to be something that the society wants us to be, rather than doing what we want to and excelling in it. And I think that's the other thing. Again, now, whatever field you choose, I think you do need to put in the blood, sweat, and tears to excel in it. There is no easy ride, and like I said, it's getting even more competitive.
But then, Umesh, the issue is also that we identify the gaps. We know there are skill gaps. We know we have very good people. We've been working in multiple countries out of people who are, based out of Nepalis who have, based out of Kathmandu. We are working in many countries. So we see there is there. Do you see that general thought process is that to say that we also need to invest in the skill thing? Because this is where because that's what we as a company are doing. And to say that, okay, if you need better people, then you invest in your people, invest in, the skills, the gap. Do you see that realization coming in to say that, we need to change? Or do you see there is that still people in being in the comfort zone? Because that's another piece that we need to work around.
Yeah, not all are same, but like if you don't change, you die, right? If you don't evolve, you die. So like I was explaining, I think in the previous discussion as well, like when we train our pilots, it's a huge investment. We train them because, we make money off them too, because they fly our planes, we carry passengers, bring in revenue. You know how much it costs for us to train one ATR pilot? It's around $45,000. And we can't do it with one ATR pilot. We need, for every aircraft, we need 3 sets, minimum 3 sets, ideally 4 sets. So, and this is not just from the airlines perspective, I'm seeing it from the other industries as well. They are investing. They are investing because if it makes profit, they will invest. It's an investment. So I don't see an issue there. And those who don't want to invest will die.
Maybe I'll go back to, Elisabeth. As development partners, what do you think can be done in Nepal with, of course, Swiss is doing it, but together in terms of, as, development partners coming together on this issue, on skills? Because everybody is working on silos, but is there some coordinated effort that can happen, or, what are your thoughts,
I think we have a quite good group in the Tibet sector of the donors and also the government. I would say this is important, that at the crucial moment we are all going the same direction. I think what is important, or where I see the challenges, maybe more on the there is a need to establish a system But at the same time, the context is so fast changing, you know, and how we can cope with this kind of system, which is always a bit slower than the changes in terms of innovation and market requirement. On the other hand, what I would like to say, it's very important for us also to work on the policy front, you know. Needs for an investment in Nepal for innovation. And it's for me not the big ones. It's not the 65 million for hydropower. It's really the small ones, the SMEs or medium enterprises, which will help Nepal to boost and be part of this innovation. So I think our major role, beside this support of the system to the government and with the private sector, is really on the policy front. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we know the gaps that are coming out, and I think we don't know what they are going to do. We are preparing for people to use technology. We don't know what is going to come in. And I think the policy response has to be there. And I'll come to Sumana now to say that, you know, just moving away from your current work of FuseMachine also, how do you see, what would be some of the messaging and what would be some of the things that we have to look out as we get this discourse, you know, moving ahead?
So perhaps I should cater my message very specifically to specific group because they are different. But before I do that, I mean, I think I've awakened a lot of you with AI displacing jobs, but I just want to mention there are really bright people in Nepal that we've trained who work alongside with Ivy educated, highly educated engineers, data scientists in US to create value for them. So we do have the human brain power to tackle on any kind of problem that exists, right? So with that preface, let me go on. So I've interacted a lot with entrepreneurs. One of the biggest mistake I would say that we make in that space is we limit ourselves to the motivational speeches level. It's not as easy as just looking up an internet and trying to do something. You need to find a mentor and you need to actually work on some of the problem areas. The size of Nepali market is really small. Your addressable market in general, unless you can come up with a solution that caters to a whole bunch of people, is always going to be it's going to be very difficult for you to be a unicorn. But having said that, if you can come up with solution that crosses borders, and again, I would like to point out to very bright people that are in Nepal, with the right set of culture, with the right set of training, they can tackle. Those are the kind of problems you should start looking into.
Maybe I just want Umesh to just touch upon, it's again one of my favorites, a few minutes on, you know, sort of the work Yeti Airlines is doing, you know, on the sustainability business front.
The word sustainable, you just can't throw money at, you know, things, right? It has to be sustainable. So whatever efforts we've done does have a selfish ulterior motive, but as long as those actions result in good, there's nothing wrong with it, I think. What happened was, like, you know, everybody's heard about how much waste has been, you know, produced in that area. So we thought, why can't we do something to, you know, sort of, how do you say, erase our own footprints. So we tied up with the local communities there. And there's an excellent local NGO called Sagar Mata Pollution Control Committee. So they gather all these waste, non-biodegradable waste, they call it. And so they bring it down to the Lukla airport. And during the beginning of the trekking season, our flights come back empty because the trekkers are just starting. So we said we'll fly it down for free. And we've tied up with a recycling firm called Blue Waste to Value. So they take it from us. So we're not just dumping it in Kathmandu. So they take it from us. So, you know, basically, that's for us actually, in the long term, it benefits us because we keep the Everest region pristine. As long as it's pristine, people will come trekking. They'll fly us, I'm sure. So, you know, we make money. So in order to keep making money, we do environmentally how do you say, helpful things. So now what's happened is, now that we've started these initiatives, our own, before it was like a management-driven sort of exercise, but our own employees now are coming up with, you know, ideas, solutions that, you know, we have adopted. Actually, this electric van was our employee-generated idea, and we're also going, changing our plastic cups to paper cups now.
No, that's great, because I think what we're trying to look at is that, sort of when we are discussing the discourses, we've been talking about the 21st century, sort of skills. But I think what is important is also to see how the 21st century, sort of economy is also changing. So with that, I would just like to open the, sort of floor for some interventions.
My question is to CEO of Yeti. I'm very passionate about filmmaking and social service. And when I tell my parents about, I want to pursue film and photography as a profession, because that's what I am enthusiastic about. Our social construction and cultures is shaped in such a way that we do not prioritize those professions. We are pressurized to study something else. So how do you perceive it? And how do you think we can solve this problem so that youth like me who are so passionate can create one of those 10 million jobs?
Her Excellency is here, especially European Union's focus on Tibet. Now I see it as one of the encouraging steps for the future. So what is your intervention to reach out to schools, private and government?
Thank you.
What's the discourse that we should be taking where we can still hold our culture identity, but we also look towards the future?
So when we're contextualizing and making things modern and technical, we also have to think about those things, indigenous knowledge, and transfer those in a more meaningful way that is more acceptable now. I think that's one thing that I have been hearing from all of us, so just wanted to share that.
Thank you.
So I would like to ask our panelists, what are your strategies, or what is private sector doing for skill building of young people in terms of corporate social responsibility? Also, I have another question for Sumana ma'am. You repeatedly stated bright people. So I would like to know what is the definition of bright people, because everyone could be bright person. Is private sector ready to, bring us in? So
Thank
to
you.
mentor.
I heard now several times, this kind of, on the one side, being still in a culture, rooted in a culture which has its value, but on the other hand, wanting to be also part of a globalized society. And I think it's a very, very demanding step. And I think that's really up to you, to the young people, to try to make these sensitive steps. And maybe you need to come together. And I always advise them, we have in Europe this Wege, these young people come together and rent one flat, I think it's time that I think the Nepali youth starts to confront the parents with that in a constructive way, in a respectful way. And I want to say one thing, nowadays it's about lifelong learning. We don't start something and end up there, I started as an agriculture engineer and I'm now where I am. So I think we need also to be more relaxed. We have to do what we want. And then what we want is what brings us further. So I think we should not lose too much thoughts about what the parents want. I think you have to get through it. I'm sorry to say so. I did it as well, and I'm still smiling. Thank you.
I think change does start from home. But having said that, some of the practical tips Your Excellency has already given, you need to start forming a support network. You need to have a support network that you can go to if you just need to vent, if you need to borrow money, if you need to figure out next steps. Be very practical, but take educated risk. Maybe save up your allowance, holiday money, invest in yourself, right? So that would be my suggestion at a micro level. One of the things I would definitely say is the way I think about critical thinking is not necessarily soft skill, it's essential skill. So when I think about bright people, that is literally what I think. Bright people are this is my definition, are those people who have the ability to critically think, question, give feedback, accept feedback, and grow. That is it. Can uneducated people learn AI? I think that's a bit tough, because you do need to code. You do need to keep yourself updated through research. AI, a huge part of AI, every work we do is research. First, we figure it out. We work with PhDs to figure out this is kind of a research problem. We have a hypothesis. Then we start to break it down. Then we test it using mathematics. So people who cannot do it on their own, who are not literate, it's going to be hard. And that's just unfortunate reality of the way things are right now. But one of the things, another question was question on CSR. So FuseMachines as a company, we actually support NAMI, a research institute in AI. We support AID. We support Daito. We support organization that we believe are going to be change agents in Nepal.
Just on the getting the parents to sort of agree on, what you want to do. I mean, that's very difficult in our society. I do understand the difficulties. And yeah, I wouldn't want you to fight with your parents or get into trouble like that. But sometimes it is also, I think, a matter of patience and also trying to educate them. And if they really see your passion in photography or social work, if they really see and your parents do love you. So, when they really see your passion and how it makes you fulfilled and happy, I think they will come around.
I'm just so tempted to make two interventions. One is, on this whole, because it also, economics will drive. I think 20 years ago, if you'd say to my parents, I'm going to go and sell meat, you'd be chucked out of the house. Today you have a cold store and you sell meat. It's good, that's how societies have changed, your perception has changed. And the other one I specifically want to talk because you raised about the ICICI Foundation. I was a very big fan of ICICI Foundation. Nachiket Moore led it, he's a Yale fellow, he did it, and I did replicate some of that. But it also is that, does institutions run beyond the person who starts it? And that's very important. And I think I replicated it, it didn't work. And after I left, and I, that's prompted me to start Nepal Economic Forums.
I think when we're talking about 21st century skills, right, it's not important what you have learned in the past. I think it's very important for you to be relaxed. Where you are, you will have your time zone, and you will succeed. The only thing that you need to do is keep evolving and learning extra skills. You cannot always rely on one skill to let you live your entire life. I think life is a process, and you need to keep evolving and learning skills.
Just now what Sumana actually said, literally from bachelor's to go master's has become like from passing class 6 to class 7 or going just beyond that. So I think it's high time that we actually talk about 21st century skills and 21st century economy in these bachelor colleges where they don't know what next to do and how they want to actually move forward. Thank you.
My question is, when we think about 21st century skills and how we are preparing, we see that we are really inclined towards coding, AI, or technology and STEM education. So sometimes people who are more into arts or, more into humanitarian stuff, we feel left out. We feel like we are not being part of the revolution. We are not being part of the evolution that the world is going through. So how is the different developmental agencies working in Nepal and all over the world making those people working in other important and crucial fields of development, making us feel, that we are also part of the big change that the world is going through?
We seem to have imbibed this collective paranoia that we're preparing the youth for something that we cannot foretell, okay? And that's such an awful kind of psychosis to put 1.7 billion youth into. Let's actually believe in our internal resourcefulness to problem solve as multi-generational population towards a future that everybody will have to live in, right? Not just the youth, but then also get youth in designing the future. So I don't think it is just like preparing young people. Is that how do we co-create knowledge to exist? Maybe that is, if anybody wants to comment on it.
I feel we can get to Generation Unlimited only if we look at the very young. The 21st century skills, particularly the life skills, empathy, creativity, grit, all kinds of things happen when the children are really very, very young. And like the ambassador was talking about TEVT, why cannot those skills be imparted in the schools? So we really need to inform like this. How do we spread out more? How do we get those bystanders, those people who don't get those facilities, don't have everything set up for them, also have a good future?
Thank you.
So I can address the two questions. One is, should we have a collective paranoia about the future that we don't know? I don't think that's the case. We don't know the future. We do know the skill sets we require for the future. What we don't know is, are we preparing? And that's the question that we should answer. Are we preparing people to be critical thinkers? Are we accepting the future in which automation will take away a lot of menial job? We should probably accept it. So especially in humanitarian section, we need to really start thinking what are the tools that are at our disposal that can really get us the information really fast. I would not think of AI as something that displaces. It's something that's going to enable each sector to just be a lot more efficient at what you do. It's a matter not of saying, I am not going to look at AI. It's really opening the eyes and saying AI is happening. There are so many tools that we didn't have in the past. How can I use it to do what I do 1,000 times better? Right? That's how I see it. There is a lot of innovation happening in the field of AI. And if we close our eyes to it, we'll be left behind rather than forcing the change to wait for us. So that's my parting thought. Thank you.
Is the private sector willing to take young people in? We have no choice. We have to. I mean, again, it's for our own benefit. We do have, aging workforce as well, so we need younger blood to come in and replenish, the workforce. So it's, of course we'll take you in, but you need to have the necessary skills. The parting comment I'd like to make is, as CEO, we're always looking for hiring new people. So what do we look for? Or what have I seen that is very valued, but very scarce in Nepal especially? If we can get managers or even younger below, employees who have these problem-solving, critical thinking, initiative-taking skills, those are what we value, I think, and this is across all industry sectors. And I don't think it's just a 21st thing. I think it'll be a 25th century thing as well. And I think it was an 18th century thing as well. So this is something I think, if you could develop, I think it would be very highly valued by, your future employers.
Nowadays, when we recruit, we don't look anymore so much on technical competencies because people bring them. You can choose. But this is the self-competence and the social competencies which are required nowadays. And I think that brings us back to the school system, be it pre-learning or later learning. That's what is needed. And this is very much needed in this country. We still have problem to find good Nepali citizens who do evaluation. Because as my colleague said, they are not trained, to make an analysis and based on the analysis to make a conclusion, a recommendation, because you could say something wrong which the other don't like. So I think that's the biggest challenge. And maybe last word, we see now in Europe that the women are stronger in self and social competences. And I would like to caution that we see already in Europe that the men are falling behind because they don't bring it as much. So I think that's something probably will come also here. And the education system has to take care about it. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you very much. A big round of applause to our panelists. I won't try to sort of summarize the discussion today. Like as I wrote in my op-ed today in the Kathmandu Post, I said, the discourse has just begun. We are trying to bring in people together to sort of ideate, to talk. And I think today, if you look around the room, it's a very diverse set of people we have in the room and talking in a forum that has been convened by the Nepal Economic Forum. So this is a start. I think this will be many more discussions and many more action-oriented stuff we would be involved in. And so that's definitely, I think I would like to end with a big thank you to the panelists and all of you here. And thank you all for coming. Thank you.